What's going on, cuties? With Rebirth on the way, I decided to go back to Remake one last time. I was missing a few trophies, so I committed and completed all 3 Gotterdammerung challenges. Now, I initially did beat the original Gotterdammerung challenge on the PS4 version of the game, but I did not finish all the Intergrade Gotterdammerung challenges. So I went back in 100% of the game, including all of the minigames and trophies and everything, so I can completely wrap this game up before moving on to Rebirth. This video essentially just compiles all 3 challenges into one video as I commentate and explain how I completed each challenge. Now, I've seen videos of people who have beaten these bosses in mere seconds, and I am by no means showing you the best or fastest way to win these. I'm just going over my way and how I was able to do it. Now, before starting, I will note a couple of things. The first fight was originally recorded on the PS4 Share Factory, so it may look a little worse than the other 2 fights. The other 2 fights should run at a decent 1080-60 frames. Also, I sped up the first fight to 1.5 times speed because the first fight does drag on and I did not want to bore you with that. This video would have been well over an hour if I kept it at the default speed, so that is why I did that. Anyway, let me get started with this thing. Now, I used Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith for this first fight, but it is of course beatable with any combination of characters. It is best to have your level, weapons, most of your materia, and pretty much everything maxed out, or else you are going to have a difficult time. I had revival earrings on all 3 of my party members. I also threw in as many HP and MP ups as I could fit into my materia slots. I had both healing and revival materia on all 3 of my party members. I paired magnifying materia with cure for Aerith specifically. I also had prayer materia on Aerith. I gave Cloud both first strike and ATB boost materia to really max out the amount of ATB I'm pumping out. I gave Tifa time materia and barrier materia, although barrier materia is not as necessary, and I did not find myself using it very often throughout this boss rush. I most definitely did use time materia though, and I highly recommend that you use it, mainly to use of haste for your party's ATB and to use stop when bosses are staggered. However, some of these dudes are immune to stop, so it will not work for all of these fights. Finally, I recommend using some combination of maxed fire, ice, and lightning spells because these spells will be very useful to this challenge. However, if you cannot fit all 3 of them into your party's materia, then it's not the worst thing in the world. Now on to the fights themselves. One thing I forgot to mention is summoning materia. Real quick, I do want to quickly go over the best summon to use. You do only get to use one summon in the entire challenge, so it is best to use it wisely. I recommend saving it for the Bahamut fight. I personally believe that Carbuncle is the best summon you could use here because of all the other summons. They're all pretty much way too similar to each other for you to really notice any difference between choosing one summon over the other. There's really no ideal summon for this challenge except for maybe Carbuncle. When Carbuncle is summoned, he will continue to heal your party or cast barrier on your party while he is out. If any party members die, he will go ahead and revive them as his final move. Even if all 3 of your party members are dead, he will still revive them before departing. This first Gotterdammerung challenge is the longest of the 3 and consists of 5 boss fights. The first one being Shiva, then Fat Chocobo, then Leviathan, then Bahamut and Ifrit, and finally Pride and Joy. Shiva is the first fight and is pretty easy. Her attacks all consist of ice-based attacks and her weakness is obviously fire. Her final move is called Diamond Dust and is easily survivable as long as you have a sufficient amount of health. To beat her, all you really have to do is stagger her at least once, then use stop materia and deal as much damage as you possibly can. Now between each fight, you do recover 50% HP and MP. I wasn't too worried about my HP, but I was always keeping my eyes on my MP usage, and 50% was pretty much just enough to keep me going after each battle. The second fight is against Fat Chocobo, and this one is by far the easiest fight in the challenge. All of Fat Chocobo's moves deal physical damage only, so there's no need to worry about taking any magic damage. Also note that all of his attacks deal varying levels of knockback. Kaboom sends him jumping around like a dumpling to deal physical damage. With Bombs Away, he throws 1 to 3 bombs that explode after 4 seconds. Work throwing random junk at your party. With Boom, he does 1 little bounce. With Whack, he smacks his wings against the floor. The Whack is the same thing as Whack, but just a little more dangerous. Roly-Poly sends him rolling around the battlefield. Finally, Que is the same as Roly-Poly, except he bounces 3 times after rolling around. He does summon these random little enemies throughout the fight, but they're easily defeatable. As long as you kill them, they won't really serve much of a threat. For more stats, Fat Chocobo has 117,900 HP, his normal attack deals 328 damage, he has 148 defense points, and finally his stagger lasts for 20 seconds, which is great. Fat Chocobo's final move is called Kerplunk, which is easily survivable if you have a sufficient amount of health, though you'll probably beat him before he even gets a chance to use it. Fat Chocobo is very easy to stagger. All you want to do is spam focus thrust as Cloud. It also helps to use unbridled strength twice as Tifa and spam the attack button. Tifa's really good at filling the stagger meter with her basic attack. Like I said, this is the easiest fight in the challenge, and once Fat Chocobo is taken care of, you can move on to the next fight, which is the Leviathan summon. I did pause between each fight just to take a breather because I do remember my first time doing this, it did have me pretty stressed out. Anyway, now for Leviathan. Leviathan's an easy but long boss fight. Leviathan takes reduced damage to pretty much every attack you throw at him, and he flies around a lot during his second phase, which really does not help. Just remember that the goal is not to beat him as fast as you can, but the goal is just to beat him. During the first half of the fight, you just want to deal damage and build up a stagger meter. You only really need to stagger him once during the whole fight. Leviathan has a variety of attacks that he uses. Pretty much all of his attacks are blockable. Let's start with his attacks that deal physical damage. Charge basically locks onto one of your party members and charges at them. He uses Bite to bite a target and deals a little bit of a knockback. With Tail Whip, he swings at your party with his tail, dealing a little bit of knockback. With Spin Rush, Leviathan does a spin attack towards you. And finally, with Fly Up, he locks onto a target and emerges at them from underneath the battlefield. Now for Leviathan's magic-based attacks. He uses Briny Barrage to deploy anywhere from 4 to 8 homing orbs towards you, dealing magic damage. Briny Bellow has Leviathan firing a jet stream that moves left to right across the battlefield, dealing magic damage. Eurosproom sucks the party into Leviathan's vicinity and releases an explosion that deals knockback and magic damage. Finally, with Spinning Dive, Leviathan charges across the battlefield, causing knockback and dealing magic damage. For more stats, Leviathan has a total of 47,160 HP. His normal attack deals 328 damage. He has 342 defense points and 379 magic defense points. His weakness is lightning magic, and his stagger lasts for 10 seconds, so take advantage of that. Now for Leviathan's final move, Tidal Wave. Before using Tidal Wave, he will use a move called Aquatic Focus. If you manage to stagger him while he is using Aquatic Focus, then he will no longer use Tidal Wave. However, Tidal Wave is easily survivable as long as your party has sufficient health. During the second half of this fight, Leviathan will use a move called Tidal Roar. During this phase, Leviathan will fly around in the air, and the surface will be filled with whirlpools that try to suck you in. They don't deal a lot of damage, but since we are playing on hard mode, they do follow you around and try to suck your party members in. The whirlpools are really not that dangerous, just be aware of them and make sure to avoid them and you'll be fine. Now the best strategy for the second half of this boss fight is to switch to Aerith and attack Leviathan while he's flying around. Once he comes back down to the surface, use up all your ATB and deal as much damage as you possibly can with all of your party members before he flies back up. Repeat this process until he's dead. Try not to use up all of your magic because this phase of the fight will drag on for a while, and it is best to just be patient and not to waste any of your MP because you are going to need everything you've got for the next fight. Anyway, I hope I did a good job explaining my strategy to beating Leviathan. This fight should be fairly easy, so enjoy the rest of it, and I will see you when it's time to fight Bahamut and Nefrit.
Alright, I am back and it is time for the Bahamut and Ifrit fight. This is by far the most difficult fight in this challenge and I will guide you through how I beat it. This is the fight where you want to use everything you got. Just like Leviathan, Bahamut takes reduced damage to pretty much everything you throw at him. For stats, Bahamut has 88,976 HP, which is a lot less than I initially thought. His basic attack deals 328 damage, he has 342 defense points, and his stagger lasts for a total of 10 seconds, if you even manage to stagger him. One very important thing to note is that if you deal 15,000 or more damage within a 30-second period, he will be pressured and he'll just sort of lay down on the ground defenselessly until the pressured period is over. This is the best time to build up his stagger meter if you can successfully pull that off. One way you can pull this off is by using your limit breaks and spamming Blizzaga immediately after. Bahamut does not have any sort of elemental weakness you can exploit. With all that being said, let's move on to Bahamut's moveset.
Bahamut's attacks deal a lot of damage to your party, so it is very important to block or dodge as many attacks as you can. We're over 10 minutes into this thing, and if you fail, you gotta redo all of the previous fights again. Also keep in mind that Bahamut only ever targets one party member at a time, so try and use that to your advantage. Now let's start with his attacks that only deal physical damage. His move Cross Impact swipes his claws at a target. This is dodgeable just by rolling away. Spin Rush is where he spins at you twice. This move is also dodgeable by rolling away. Finally, his move Umbral Frenzy, which is a very dangerous one that can destroy your chances of winning. With the Umbral Frenzy, Bahamut will chase down a target and slashes them with his claws 8 times. This attack deals a lethal amount of damage and is pretty much impossible to dodge. The best thing you can do here is hold down the block button during the attack, and I recommend healing afterwards because it will still drain a decent amount of health even if you are blocking. Now the rest of Bahamut's attacks feature some level of magic damage. Claw Swipe sends 4 vertical shockwaves at a target. You can dodge this by rolling away. Umbral Strikes is another dangerous one. He will throw 2 homing orbs at you and it is impossible to block this move. This move deals a lot of damage, so it is very important to avoid it. The best way you can dodge this is by spamming the roll button towards one direction until you dodge both of his orbs. Bind Impulse also deals a deadly amount of damage, but is fairly easy to avoid. He will attempt to grab a target, but you can avoid this by either maintaining a safe distance from Bahamut or by simply rolling away if you are near him. If he does manage to grab someone, he will hold on to them for 5 seconds before unleashing a deadly attack on them. You can get out of this by dealing at least 1000 damage to him during the first 5-second window. Umbral Aura is less of an attack and more of a defense for Bahamut. He will surround himself with a ring of purple aura and will slowly damage anyone that touches it. Just keep a safe distance from Bahamut to avoid taking damage from this. He doesn't use this move until a little later into the fight, so just keep an eye out. Flare Breath is probably the easiest move to avoid. He will spray a ring of purple magic around him and it will go away pretty much immediately after the move is used. The purple in this move is a different shade from the purple to Umbral Aura. Trust me, you'll know the difference. Anyone who's affected by this attack will have silence and slow cast on them for 15 seconds, but like I said, this move is easily avoidable. Now this last move is his deadliest attack aside from his final move. Bahamut will not begin to use Dive Bomb until a little later into the fight. He only uses it a couple of times during the fight, but it is very deadly. First you want to make sure your party is at full health when you see Bahamut preparing this move. During Dive Bomb, Bahamut will fly up and shoot down at a single party member, like a meteor. The attack will affect everyone on the battlefield regardless of how far they are. This move is an instant kill if you are not blocking this attack. It will also be an instant kill if he hits you directly. You want to dodge this to make sure he doesn't get a direct hit on you. You then want to hold down the block button right before he hits the ground. I would then follow up by healing everyone in the party. Now I'll explain my strategy on how to beat Bahamut and his final attack. During the fight, Bahamut will count down from 5 to 1. During each of the countdown phases, he will remain stationary and will not attack you for a brief period of time. These are your chances to deal as much damage to him as possible. If you fail to defeat him before the countdown, he will then use Mega Flare, his final move. Mega Flare will kill all of your party members and there is no way to block or counter this unless you still have your revival earrings. Now there are 2 ways to deal with this. Either you can beat Bahamut before he gets a chance to use Mega Flare or wait until after he uses Mega Flare to defeat him. I went for the second option because I didn't want the stress of dealing a crazy amount of damage within a short period of time. This is possible by either having Revival Earrings or by summoning Carbuncle right before he uses Mega Flare. Now I don't know what was going through my head, but I accidentally summoned Leviathan during this fight, even though I did have Carbuncle equipped on one of my party members. I guess I just forgot to use Carbuncle or I panicked, I'm not sure. I did have revival earrings equipped, and I also had reprieve, so that saved me. After Bahamut uses Mega Flare, the fight becomes much easier because you can take as much time as you need beating him. He does restart the countdown and will use Mega Flare a second time, but trust me, you'll beat him way before he gets the chance to count all the way back down again. Once you drain half of Bahamut's health, he will summon Ifrit onto the battlefield. This to me was the hardest part of the whole challenge. Ifrit himself is pretty easy to stagger, and he does not have too much health either. Ifrit has 19,808 HP, his basic attack deals 328 damage, and he has 312 defense points. His stagger only lasts for 6 seconds, but he doesn't have a lot of health anyway. Obviously, Ifrit deals fire damage and is weak to ice attacks. Once Ifrit is summoned, you want to get rid of him as quickly as you can. This can be done while Bahamut is doing one of his countdowns, so you can solely focus on Ifrit. By this point, I had my limit break saved up for this part of the fight, and I recommend you do the same. All you want to do is use all of your limit breaks on Ifrit, and then use Blizzaga if you have that equipped. That should be enough to get rid of him, and you can go back to focusing on Bahamut. Ifrit will only be summoned once during this battle, so there's no need to worry about him coming back. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for this fight. It is a tough one, so good luck. Enjoy the rest of the footage, and I will see you when it's time to fight Pride and Joy.
Be careful. Get ready.
Let me use this. Good luck. Here goes. You can do it. It's all you. I'll take care of them. Can you take over for me? I'm here. Quick. Not broken. It's a win.
Now this was actually the first time I beat Bahamut, and I had no idea what to expect for Pride and Joy. I guess I just got really lucky and beat him first try. In retrospect, Pride and Joy is actually a pretty easy boss fight. I just used all of the wrong tactics. Now by this point of the fight, I used all of my resources on Bahamut and Ifrit, so I was basically just working with whatever I had by this point in the challenge. Now for Pride and Joy's stats. Pride and Joy has a total of 82,530 HP, his basic attack deals 328 damage, he has 342 defense points, and his stagger lasts for 10 seconds. You do also gain 4,500 XP and 30 AP for beating him, but you're maxed out by this point anyway, so who cares.
So it's my turn.
I took a long pause during this fight just to think for a little bit, so... Anyway, for his attacks that solely do physical damage, Double Machine Gun basically just fires at you, Brutal Tackle stomps on you with 1 foot, Brute Force body slams himself onto the ground dealing a significant amount of damage, with Stomp he jumps and deals physical damage, finally Catch is a dangerous one. He grabs one of your party members and holds onto them for a while. Eventually he will slam them down onto the ground. The only way to counter this is by destroying one of his limbs. For his magic based attacks, Knee Fire sprays fire from his knees, Ankle Fire blasts fire from his ankles, Beam Cannon is one you really want to avoid or else you may have to start over from Shiva. He will charge his Beam Cannon for 3 seconds and fire at you, pretty much killing you. With Napalm Shot, he shoots pools of fire that last for 30 seconds. You want to avoid these at all costs unless you have some sort of resistance to fire equipped. Spark Whip shoots lightning from his hand from left to right, stunning any targets that it hits for 8 seconds. Stun Blast shoots a wave that stuns targets for 8 seconds. Finally, Jammer Laser shoots lasers in 3 directions that inflict a number of status ailments. Those being Stop for 8 seconds if it's a pink laser, Silence and Sedate for 60 seconds if it's a red laser, Sleep for 40 seconds if it's a blue laser, and if it's a purple laser, you will have Poison for 4 minutes and Slow for 40 seconds. Now here's the crazy part. I did not know this until after I beat Pride and Joy, but you can avoid pretty much all of his attacks if you just stay behind him the whole fight. He won't even shoot the pools of lava or anything. All his attacks are avoidable if you just stay behind him because he will not be able to reach you from there. He will try to turn towards you the whole game, but if you stay close and stay behind him, this fight will be a cakewalk. Pride and Joy isn't a summon, so he doesn't have any final moves or anything like that. Just don't stray too far from him and try to use lightning magic because he is weak to lightning. You don't even really need to attack any of his limbs unless you want to play it safe. Anyway, I barely beat this guy with Cloud's Limit Break. Tifa and Aerith were dead and I was low on ATB and HP and MP, so I got pretty lucky. If you successfully beat Pride and Joy, then congrats, you just earned yourself a Gotterdammerung. Please enjoy the rest of this fight, and I will be back for the challenge against Whites the Immaculate.
Well done, Cloud. You've managed to fully tap into the potential once locked within you. Now that my research is at long last complete, I believe that it's time I told you the truth about myself. I'm not human. I'm a cyborg created to serve as Hojo's assistant. I was given knowledge and power beyond that of a human, but I was robbed of free will, bound to obey the whims of my master. But when we met, Cloud, I sensed something within you, something I knew would allow me to break free of my chains. By identifying and studying a subject with infinite potential such as yourself, I could adhere to the directives imposed upon me, all the while pursuing my plans for independence in secret. Your combat data provided me with the vital information that I required to enhance my basic functionality. This is the result. Through my research and with your assistance, I have freed myself from Hojo's bondage. Cool. I cannot thank you enough for your help. You've given me the power to finally live life on my own terms.
So, what are you gonna do now?
I'm not sure. It's all a big, wonderful mystery. It's nice, not knowing something for a change.
Now, although Weiss is the shortest of the 3 challenges, he is also the most difficult in my opinion. I had to use a very specific strategy to beat him. Let's start with gear. I used Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa again for this fight. I had healing and revive materia on Tifa and Aerith. I also gave Aerith the barrier materia. I had ice materia on all 3 party members, which is important. I gave Cloud time materia, and trust me, you are going to need it for this fight. The most important materia you need for this fight, however, is deadly dodge materia on Tifa. You are primarily going to be using Tifa for this fight, and the key to winning is using deadly dodge materia. For summoning materia, I used Carbuncle. I recommend filling the rest of your materia slots with HP and MP ups because you are going to be using Blizzaga a lot during this fight. Now for Weiss. Weiss the Immaculate has a total of 94,320 HP. Beating him grants you 4,500 XP, 90 AP, and 2,250 gil. None of those rewards will serve any sort of use by this point in the game, but you will gain 2 Gotterdammerungs from this. Weiss has 6 main moves that he will use during this challenge. Crosswire Cleave, Execution, Evisceration, Obliteration, Stab, and Immaculate End. All of these moves deal physical damage only. Weiss has a total of 3 phases that he switches to depending on how much health he has. Now this fight does have a pretty strict time limit. If you don't beat Weiss within about 3.5 minutes, he will use a move called Immaculate End, which deals 9,999 damage to all 3 of your party members. Now this move is survivable using either Revival Earrings, Reprieve, or Carbuncle. I did have Reprieve and Carbuncle just in case that would happen, but unlike the Bahamut fight, it is best to beat Weiss before he uses Immaculate End because after he uses it, he resumes his phase shift and may begin healing again. This is the type of boss you want to defeat as quickly as possible because taking your time will cause more problems than solutions. During his first phase, you want to max out your unbridled strength and spam dodge as Tifa. Use your other party members to cast Blizzaga on Weiss while he's chasing Tifa around. Once you notice that he's pressured, attack him with Tifa because Tifa is exceptionally good at building up stagger meters. While you are fighting him, try to use haste on all of your party members so you can cast Blizzaga as much as you can. Once Weiss is staggered, deal as much damage as you possibly can to him. Once the stagger is over, he will use phase shift and move on to his second phase. Weiss's second phase is the easiest of the 3. He will pull out a machine gun and remain relatively stationary. Take advantage of this and spam Blizzaga with all 3 of your party members until he is staggered. Once he is staggered, repeat the process of dealing as much damage as you possibly can, because this third phase is going to be the most challenging. Alright, this is going to be the magnum opus of the phases. Once the stagger is over, Weiss is going to phase shift into his third phase. This phase is basically a fight against the clock. He will heal himself throughout this phase, and you want to stagger him as quickly as you can before he recovers half of his health. I did use Carbuncle during this phase because I knew time was getting closer for him to use Immaculate End. Once Weiss recovers half of his health, one of 2 things will happen. He will either phase shift back into phase 2, or if time is up, he will phase shift into phase 4 and use Immaculate End. Now there is a brief second where you can interrupt Weiss's Immaculate End with a stagger, but staggering him is the only way you can cancel Immaculate End. That's actually exactly what I did. I was very close to dying, but I staggered him just in time and drained the rest of his health, giving myself a victory. Now that's pretty much all I got to say in terms of defeating Weiss. There's still one last Gotterdammerung challenge, being Pride and Joy Part 2. This next one is by far the easiest of the 3, but anyway, I will see you guys in the next challenge.
I've got this. Take him down.
Seizing the ocean. Come on.
My turn.
No more games. It's over. Bingo. There. Gotcha.
You're up.
Give it your all. Now's the chance. I'll do what I can. Just taking a little break.
Now's our chance.
Let's finish. No more games. I should probably heal up first.
I've got this. Keep it up.
Seizing the ocean.
This is what's possible when you transcend. Good to know. Either way, see you in deep route.
You're good at this.
Told you so.
Now this final Gotterdammerung challenge is definitely the easiest of the three. There are a total of 3 rounds in this challenge, the first one with Bahamut and Ifrit, the second one with Rama, and the third one with a more difficult version of Pride and Joy. For this challenge, I of course used Yuffie and Sonon. For gear, I put Revival Earrings on both of them. I used Carbuncle again for my summoning materia. I put First Strike materia on both Yuffie and Sonon. For Yuffie, I used Healing materia linked with Magnifying materia so I could heal both Yuffie and Sonon at the same time. I also put Revive and Ice materia on her. I gave Yuffie ATB boost to maximize the ATB she's pumping out. Finally, I filled the rest of Yuffie's materia slots with HP and MP ups. For Sonon, I put Assess materia, although I did only use it for the sake of getting 100% completion. I can think of plenty of materia that you can use instead of Assess that would make this fight much easier. I also gave him Lightning materia because Pride and Joy is weak against lightning attacks. I gave Sonon Prayer materia, although I didn't find myself using it that much. Finally, I filled the rest of Sonon's materia slots with HP and MP ups. Now let's get into the Bahamut fight again. Now since I already went over all of Bahamut's moves and stats previously, I'm just going to go ahead and get straight into how to beat him. In the very beginning of the fight, Bahamut is going to throw an undodgeable attack at you. Just block it first, then give yourself some space afterwards. Now you want to start by synergizing. You're pretty much going to be synergized throughout all 3 bosses, and there isn't much of a reason to not be synergized anyway. You then want to cast regen on both Yuffie and Sonon. Once you're synergized and you both have regen, you want to throw your shuriken at Bahamut. By the way, I used Boomerang for Yuffie's weapon, and I recommend you do the same. Now while you're dodging and blocking Bahamut's attacks, I want you to attack him from a distance as much as you can. Try to keep your shuriken on Bahamut as much as you can and keep dealing damage. Even though it's only a little bit of damage, it does add up over time. One last thing to do early on in the battle is to use Ice Ninjutsu. This will become useful later on in the battle. Now Bahamut is going to begin his countdown again. When Bahamut is in the middle of a countdown, you want to use Synergized Art of War and deal as much damage as possible. Just repeat this process until he's at half health and avoid using Icy Banishment. Now halfway through the battle, Bahamut is going to summon Ifrit again, and again you want to get rid of Ifrit as swiftly as possible. It's best to wait until Bahamut does another countdown so you can focus on Ifrit. If you have any limit breaks by this point, then use them on Ifrit. This is also when you want to use Icy Banishment on Ifrit since he is weak to ice. Finally finish him off with Blizzaga and you're good. Now if you're worried you won't beat Bahamut before he uses Mega Flare, then feel free to summon Carbuncle to save you from his Mega Flare. I wanted to save Carbuncle for later, and I was confident I was going to beat Bahamut in time, so I decided not to use Carbuncle. I was able to pressure Bahamut by using Sonon's Limit Break while casting Blizzaga as Yuffie. I then defeated him with Banishment. This is the most difficult fight in this challenge, so it only gets easier from here. Enjoy the rest of the fight, and I will see you when it's time to fight Rama.
Now I'm ready to rumble. Take them, royal minions.
Now Lightning Santa is the easiest fight in this challenge. For stats, Rama has 28,296 HP, and defeating him grants you 30 AP. Most of Rama's attacks consist of lightning-based attacks, and he is weak to wind. Now it is best to defeat Rama before he uses his final move, Judgment Bolt. Even if he does use it, it's no big deal. Judgment Bolt is survivable as long as your party has sufficient health. You want to start off by using Wind Ninjutsu, then use ATB boost and cast regen on both Yuffie and Sonon. To beat him, all you want to do is use Synergized Windstorm 3 to 4 times, and if he's still not dead, then finish him off using Windy Banishment. Rama is the magnum opus of easy Gotterdammerung. Easy Gotterdammerung fights. Let's do this.
Okay. Little. Great. Already. Now what important? Get lost. Waiting for it. Think I'm loyal minion. Not now. You're not getting out of this one alive. That's a good word to describe me. I'm thinking like
Now, although this fight against Pride and Joy is a little more difficult than the original Pride and Joy fight, it's still pretty easy. You want to start off by using Lightning Ninjutsu because Pride and Joy does have a weakness to lightning magic. You then want to use ATB boost and cast regen on both Yuffie and Sonon. Now, Pride and Joy is also weak to synergy attacks, so you want to be synergized this whole fight. Pride and Joy will try to separate you from Sonon by grabbing onto one of you, but as long as you stay behind him, there's not much to worry about. You can pressure Pride and Joy by either casting Lightning Magic as Sonon, using Thunderous Banishment as Yuffie, or by attacking him with a synergized attack. You basically just want to stick behind Pride and Joy the whole time and attack him until he's staggered. Once he is staggered, go off on him with your limit breaks and whatever else you got and ride out the rest of the fight until you win. Defeating Pride and Joy will grant you 2 Gotterdammerungs and a big smile on your face. Thank you for watching my guide on these 3 Gotterdammerung challenges, and I will be back to upload Rebirth content. Thank you and good luck.